All right, so now that World War I is over, you have to come up with a peace. And so President Woodrow Wilson of the United States, he has come up with his 14 points. And these are points in which he has gone over the causes of the war: mania, militarism, alliances, nationalism, imperialism, and assassination. And he's looked at how to fix all those points. So peace aims. Wilson, President Woodrow Wilson of the United States, he wants open conversations. He wants everybody to talk. He doesn't want alliances anymore. He wants countries to choose what kind of government they want, and for every ethnicity to actually have their own country, and that's that self-determination. He wants a covenant, and the covenant is going to be the League of Nations. That's his dream. That's what he wants to do. The League of Nations is going to try, at least in Wilson's opinion, to maintain international peace. So an attack on one in the League of Nations is an attack on all. So it's an association of nations to prevent war and ensure democracy. So even though Wilson's saying no more secret alliances, so even though President Woodrow Wilson is saying no more alliances, the League of Nations will be a huge international alliance system. So Wilson is really cheered on by a lot of people. The people love him. But he's an idealist. He comes into the talks, the peace talks, with this notion that everybody is going to put aside all the differences, all the hate, all the anger that they have towards other countries. But remember, the United States enters in 1917. We don't really lose that many soldiers. We don't lose an entire economy, an entire generation to the war like Germany did, like France did, like Britain did. And so those countries aren't coming to the Paris Peace Conference with a let's forgive everybody kind of atmosphere. So secret wartime treaties is going to be one thing that he doesn't want to do. Britain's Prime Minister Lloyd George is going to campaign on making Germany pay. They want war reparations. They want Germany to pay for the entire war done, and they want Germany to basically get the punishment. And France, they're going to want security because remember, the Germans come through France first. So what you're kind of seeing is that Britain and France are very angry. They're upset. They want revenge. And the United States, we just are coming in with this bright notion that everybody can forgive, that it's water under the bridge. And I'll put up the song on Edmo for you. So the Treaty of Versailles, June 29th, 1919, it's going to end the war with Germany. So the armistice, it signs a ceasefire November 11th at the 11th hour, 1918. The treaty actually is signed sometime later. So they sign the armistice in November, but it's not until the following June that the actual treaty that ends the official war is going to be signed. So this is going to end the war with Germany. Article 231 is talking about the war guilt. What the war guilt clause is it says that Germany is responsible for the war. Germany is the guilty party. And because Germany is guilty, it has to pay war reparations. Okay. What war reparations are is that for every bullet that was fired, Germany has to pay for it. For every building that was destroyed, Germany will pay. And then what they're also going to do is they're going to restrict the German army to 100,000 people. This is basically making them have a home guard, our national security force. It's just a defense. It's not meant to be offensive, so they're not meant to actually invade and take over other places. When you say this to the German people, remember under Otto von Bismarck, he really made Prussian army the superior in Europe, and then he unifies Germany. So when we actually restrict the army to 100,000, it's a hurt on the German pride, but it's also going to hurt the economy because a lot of people who are lower middle class or are poor, they join the military because it's a steady paycheck, and this isn't going to happen. So how are they going to pay the war reparations? Who knows? Then Germany has to return the Alsace-Lorraine area between France and Germany. So this is the area that has a lot of like iron or stuff that is good for an industrialized country, and so they have to return that to France. So when you return the Lorraine area, now Germany, if they wanted to actually build up factories again, they're not going to have any resources to put into the factories. So again, their economy gets hurt. Part of German's Prussia is going to go to this new Poland that's going to create it, because part of the new treaty, the Treaty of Versailles, is that there's going to be self-determination. So the people who were once Polish, who have been taken over by Russia and Germany and Austria, they are going to go ahead and get their country back. The Rhineland is going to be a neutralized zone, so it's a demilitarized zone, and this is the land between Germany and France. Germany is going to see this treaty as very unfair because they have to sign it. They're forced to sign it. They don't get a choice, and they don't get to talk at the peace talks, at the treaty. So the big four are the ones who are actually negotiating all this. And the big four is Italy, France, the United States, and Britain. And the United States will not sign the Treaty of Versailles because it has the League of Nations attached to it. So the other peace treaties are going to redraw maps of Eastern Europe. So you're going to get a lot of new countries that are created or established after World War I. Germany and Russia loses a lot of land. And remember, Russia lost because they signed a separate treaty earlier, getting them out of the war. The Austrian Empire ceases to exist, so it disappears. You get new nations. Look at all these new nations that are created: Finland, Latvia, Estonia, Lithuania, Poland, Czechoslovakia, Austria-Hungary, larger Romania, Yugoslavia, which is an enlarged Serbia. So you're getting all these new countries in Eastern Europe that will become new countries. In spite of all this like self-determination, it's actually impossible to achieve. Remember how I gave you the scenario of the United States? There's a lot of different ethnicities in the United States. And so if you really try to divide up the United States along the self-determination, I mean, basically every state would be a separate country. And the Ottoman Empire completely disappears. And remember, they had been dying, and now they're officially gone. And the League of Nations has mandates. And so in the League of Nations, here's some mandates. Britain is going to get Iraq and Palestine. And Iraq has oil, but Palestine doesn't. So Britain's in the Middle East. France is going to gain Syria and Lebanon. Again, that's going to be in the Middle East. And it has oil. Self-determination is mainly for Europeans. It's not going to be for the areas like in the Middle East. So all Britain and France do is they take the areas that are actually good economically, like they can build their country up through these countries. They take that. And so, again, Germany is getting hurt constantly through this treaty. So the feudal search for stability, there's an uneasy peace and an uncertain security. America, the United States, is going to go back to a policy of isolationism as we've been before. We retreat into isolationism. We don't want to get involved in the world affairs, and we do not join the League of Nations. The United States will sign a separate treaty ending its involvement in World War I. Because the U.S. doesn't sign and does not join the League of Nations is a very weak country. The League of Nations is like a gun with no bullet in it. It's got no ammo. And so you can fire a gun that has no ammo. You can pull the trigger, but there's nothing there. And that's kind of the League of Nations. It's a very weak organization. They can yell and scream all they want, but there's no actual bite. There's no real strength in it. So the League of Nations is weak, and they only can really do economic sanctions to actually halt aggression, because the United States is the country that comes out of World War I, the big winner. The economy in the United States is going to flourish, is going to do great, thanks to the fact that you have the United States providing all the supplies for the Allies. So the United States will go through the roaring 1920s. They have a great time, where other countries, their economy is going to suck. Germany and the Soviet Union and the United States are not members of the League of Nations. So they're not going to be in this alliance system. Now, the Soviet Union's not going to be in it because they're communists and they pulled out of the war. Germany's never allowed any say, and the U.S. just simply won't join. The French policy of coercion. So France is going to feel really abandoned by Britain and the United States. France got its butt handed to it in a lot of ways in World War I. They really are destroyed because most of the trench warfare is occurring on the French side. And so after the war is over, they really have to strictly enforce the Treaty of Versailles, particularly the repayments or the reparation. And whenever Germany can't pay the reparations, France will go ahead and do some sort of retaliation against Germany. So Germany fails to make their payment their reparation payment in 1922. Their economy is already crashing. The war just ended in 1919, and 3 years later, the German economy is crashing. So France is going to go ahead and send troops in, and they are going to send troops in, and they're going to go ahead and get into the Ruhr. And this is an area in Germany that has the factories. So it's an industrial and mining center. So when you think about it, France is going in there for a reason. They're going in there to take resources that the Germans have. So the Germans going to start doing this policy of passive resistance, and this is going to fuel German inflation. And what their system of passive resistance is, they're going to print more marks, which is their money, and that's going to devalue the money system. And the Germans are going to refuse to pay, so France just takes the supplies. So now on, what's going to end up happening is every time Germany is actually down on payment, they can't make the payment, they just print more money, and so the system, the mark, the value of the mark continues to decline. The hopeful years, 1924 to 1929, the United States is going to come up with the Dawes Plan, and this is a loan payment system that the U.S. will give to Germany, and it's going to reduce Germany's reparation payments, so it lowers their monthly payment, basically, and it's going to stabilize the German economy through the loans. But October 29, 1929, the great stock market crash happens, and the U.S. will recall the loan, and so German economy is going to crumble, the American economy crumbles, everyone's economy basically crumbles. So what you're kind of seeing with Germany and France is there's still a lot of hostilities, and there's going to be just times when when France will occupy Germany to get the Germans to pay. So the Great Depression there's a lot of prosperity in the 1920s, but it's fake, it's all fragile. People are buying on credit, they're buying stock on loan, they can't afford the stock, so they're investing money that they don't even have. And so when the stock market crashes, you really have everyone kind of going in through a bad depression. When America was actually in World War I and right before it, the American farmer is producing a lot of food, and they're producing food for Europeans, for the Allies. And after the war is over, the European farmers want to go back to the farmland, and they're going to start farming. And so Europe's not going to buy American farm products anymore. Instead, they make their own stuff. But the American farmer doesn't stop overproducing the food. They're going to keep producing the same amount as they always have, and that's going to drop the price of food. And that means that any debt that they have, they're not going to be able to pay off. Tariffs are going to be increased to protect domestic workers, so the United States is going to create the Hawley-Smoot tariff, and the Hawley-Smoot tariff is going to cause basically an international stopping of trade. So the U.S., we raise our tariffs, which is a tax on an imported good, and all the other countries do the same thing. Investments in the American stock market boom, emit fewer loans to Germany. And then when Wall Street crashes, the stock market crashes, October 1929, it's going to lead to even fewer investments abroad. People can't invest money if they don't have it. In Vienna, there's going to be a bank collapse. The Vienna bank is going to collapse, and that's going to keep making the economy crash more and more. In Europe, the trade is slowing down. You get less investments. You get less money out there. Unemployment's going to increase. Repercussions. The worst year post-World War I is 1932. 40% of German workers are going to be unemployed, and 25% of British workers are going to be unemployed. So it's not just the German economy that sucks. The American economy is going to suck. Everybody's economy is really just going downhill. It's going downhill fast. Women are going to obtain jobs as housekeepers or people who like laundresses, and men are going to be unemployed, and they get resentful. And when men are unemployed and they're resentful, they get together and they talk and they form, political action groups. And so the government's getting very powerless in a lot of these countries, because when people can't remember when they last held a job, and they can't remember when times were good because it's been that long, what ends up happening is they become more radical. They become more dangerous as time goes on. The unemployment in Germany is 40%. The unemployment in Britain's 25%. In America, it's 50%. There's just this gender role of men having jobs and being the breadwinner, and then the woman not. The woman having a job now it's going to be a shift. And so you're just going to see Marxism and fascism becoming alternatives.